Hey there, ready to dive deep? Today, we're tackling generative AI.
It's everywhere right now.
It is, and for good reason.
Yeah.
We're going beyond AI that just learns.
Right?
We're talking about AI that creates.
Yes.
Picture this, AI composing a symphony,
Wow.
not just picking a track from your playlist.
It's fascinating, isn't it? This shift from AI simply recognizing patterns to actually creating something new is what's got everyone buzzing.
You and me both. I've got this YouTube crash course we can unpack, some exciting buzz about Claude.ai, and even a peek at building our own AI-powered Android app.
Oh, wow.
By the end of this deep dive, you'll be able to cut through the hype and see the real potential of generative AI.
Absolutely. Well, make sure you have the need to know.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. The YouTube video used this analogy of an artist. Instead of just knowing how to tell a golden retriever from a poodle, generative AI could, say, imagine an entirely new dog breed based on what it's learned.
Wild. Right. And what's really capturing people's attention is that this creative ability translates across fields. Businesses are using generative AI for things like writing code, while marketing teams are leveraging it to craft attention-grabbing content. Remember those AI-generated YouTube intros that were all the rage?
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's generative AI in action.
Okay, that makes sense, but how does it actually work? I'm dying to know what's going on under the hood.
It all starts with data mountains of it. Text, audio, images, you name it. And AI's probably seen it. Generative AI models are trained on this data, learning to perform specific tasks based on your instructions.
Okay.
Imagine showing an AI tons of pictures of cats, not to identify them, but to eventually generate a completely new cat picture on its own. It's learning the essence of what makes a cat a cat.
So what you're saying is if I feed it enough dog photos, it could invent a doodle-doodle, cross between a doodle and another doodle.
Well, maybe not exactly, but you're on the right track. There are different types of models within generative AI, each with its own strengths. That YouTube video mentioned transformers, which are amazing at understanding sequences and context.
Sequences and context. So
Yeah.
it's like when you're reading a book, you understand each word based on the words that came before it. That's what transformers do with data.
You got it. It's about understanding relationships within the data. And then there are diffusion models, which gradually refine random noise into incredibly realistic-looking images. That's how some of those mind-blowing AI art pieces are created.
Okay, that's pretty incredible. And then there's all the buzz about large language models, or LLMs, right? Are those what give AI the ability to, well, actually use language?
You're right on the money. LLMs are the brains behind those AI chatbots we've all seen, like ChatGPT. Imagine giving an AI a library card to the entire internet. That's essentially what we're doing with LLMs. They learn from billions of words, which allows them to communicate in a way that feels surprisingly human.
That explains why ChatGPT always sounds like it's about to offer me a latte and some life advice. The YouTube video also mentioned other LLMs like Claude and Gemini. Are they all similar?
They all fall under the umbrella of LLMs, but each has its own unique strengths and, shall we say, personality quirks. For example, GPT is known for being a whiz at generating text, while Claude is gaining a lot of attention for its emphasis on safety and ethical considerations in its responses.
Speaking of AI that feels almost human, let's talk about Claude.ai a bit more. The YouTube video made it sound like the ultimate coding buddy. I'm picturing like a super-powered version of those autocomplete features we're all used to.
It's definitely got people talking, especially developers. Imagine an AI assistant that not only helps you write code, but also debugs it for you, interprets complex charts, and can even assist with tedious tasks like moving code between systems.
Wait, hold on. It can interpret charts.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm thinking about all those reports and data visualizations I go through. That would be game-changing.
You're catching on quickly. Claude.ai is known for its strong visual reasoning capabilities. It's able to analyze charts, graphs, even pull out information from images that aren't perfect. That has huge implications for any field dealing with data finance, healthcare, you name it.
Color me impressed. This visual reasoning thing sounds like it's a key part of what makes Claude.ai so powerful.
It's definitely a major selling point. But there's more. Another standout feature is how it uses these things called artifacts, which essentially transform Claude.ai from a conversational chatbot into a sophisticated tool that can actually create and manage complex workflows.
Okay, so it's like going from a casual chat with a helpful friend to having a superpowered AI project manager at your beck and call.
Precisely. Let's say you ask Claude.ai to create a simple tic-tac-toe game using Python. Not only will it generate the code, but it'll also give you a sample of what the output should look like, along with a clear explanation, all within a user-friendly interface.
Now that is seriously impressive. It sounds like a total game changer for anyone who codes, from beginners to seasoned pros. But we've been gushing over Claude.ai. What about other AI coding tools out there? What's the deal with GitHub Copilot?
Ah, yes, GitHub Copilot. Think of this tool like having an expert coder whispering suggestions over your shoulder as you work, but without the awkward silence. It's all about seamlessly integrating with your workflow, offering real-time code suggestions and completions, which can be a lifesaver when you're dealing with repetitive tasks.
So it's like having an autocomplete for your code, but on steroids.
That's a great way to put it. And it's not just about speeding things up. It can actually help you write better, cleaner code by suggesting best practices and even flagging potential errors before they become a problem.
Okay, this is blowing my mind already.
Hmm.
But I have to ask, every rose has its thorns, right?
Yes.
Are there any downsides to using GitHub Copilot?
Like any tool, it does have its limitations. One thing to remember is that it's trained on publicly available code. This means there's always a chance it could suggest code that's not entirely original or might not perfectly fit your specific needs. It's not a mind reader yet.
So it's still crucial to have a good grasp of the coding fundamentals and double-check its suggestions, especially if you're working on something truly unique.
You've hit the nail on the head. Think of it as a powerful assistant, not a replacement for your own coding expertise.
Got it. So we've covered these incredible AI tools, but the YouTube video also mentioned the possibility of actually building our own AI-powered apps. Is that really something we can do without, meeting a PhD in computer science?
You might be surprised how much easier it's becoming. We actually have a source here that walks us through building a text-to-image app for Android using LLMs, and it's much more straightforward than you might think.
Wait, are you telling me we could build an app that generates images just from text descriptions? So if I typed in something like a fluffy cat wearing a monocle, it would just create it?
That's the general idea. There's a bit of coding involved, of course, but the process is getting more streamlined all the time thanks to these pre-trained models and user-friendly platforms.
This is amazing. Before we get too carried away dreaming up our own AI apps, I do want to loop back to Gemini. The YouTube video made it sound like Google's answer to GPT and Claude.
It is. Gemini is Google's latest and greatest in the world of LLMs. They designed it to be this multimodal powerhouse, able to understand and generate text, code, audio, images, even video, all within a single platform.
Whoa, hold on. Did they just combine every AI tool we've talked about into one mega tool?
In a way, yes. Gemini aims to break down the walls between different types of data, creating a more seamless and user-friendly AI experience.
So instead of having separate tools for generating text, images, and videos, you're saying Gemini could potentially do it all.
That's the vision. It's still early days for Gemini, but the potential across industries is incredibly exciting.
My head is spinning a bit, not gonna lie. This is a lot to process.
I hear you. It's a lot to take in, and we're just getting started. Let's dive into some specific examples of how these LLMs are being used in the real world. The YouTube video touched on some pretty interesting use cases, especially with GPT.
Yeah, let's unpack that. Because it's one thing to talk about the theory, but I'm really curious about how this stuff is actually being used.
You know, when most people think of LLMs, they think of chatbots or writing assistants.
Totally. It's like they're straight out of science fiction.
Right. But one of the most practical applications of LLMs, like GPT, is actually in data analysis.
Wait, really? I thought LLMs were all about language. How do they handle numbers and spreadsheets?
That's the cool part. They can actually analyze data from various sources, even something like a messy Excel spreadsheet, and generate insightful reports.
Let me get this straight. Instead of me manually going through all the data, creating charts, trying to make sense of it all, I could just ask an LLM to do it for me.
You got it. Imagine you have a spreadsheet with billing data. You could ask GPT something like, analyze this and tell me if there are any big differences in billing amounts based on how someone was admitted.
Wow, that could be a game changer for anyone who works with data. I'm already thinking of a million ways that could be useful in my own work.
Exactly. And it's not just basic stats. GPT can handle more complex stuff like statistical tests and even offer interpretations of the results. It's like having an on-demand data analyst at your fingertips.
This is incredible. Okay, what about programming? We touched on those AI coding tools earlier, but can LLMs actually write code from scratch?
They can. GPT, for example, can generate code in various programming languages like Python based on your instructions. Let's say you need a program to search for a specific item within a data set. You can ask GPT to write a program to search for an element in an array, and it will generate the code for you, including the logic and syntax.
So theoretically, someone with zero coding experience could use GPT to build a simple app.
It's possible, But it's important to remember that GPT is a tool, not a magic wand. While it can help write code, you still need to understand the basics of programming to use it effectively.
So it's like having a super advanced code library at your fingertips, but you still need to know how to put the pieces together.
Exactly. And speaking of putting pieces together, we should talk about prompt engineering.
Prompt engineering, is that like the art of talking to AI?
It's like giving AI clear directions. Prompt engineering is all about crafting the most effective prompts to get the desired response from an AI. The better your prompts, the better your results.
So it's not just about what you ask, but how you ask it.
Precisely. Think of it like this. You're the director, and the AI is the actor. You need to give the AI clear directions to get the performance you want.
Okay, I like that analogy. So are there any secret tips or tricks to prompt engineering? How do I become a master AI director?
One key thing is to be super clear, concise, and specific. Don't be vague, focus on the exact outcome you're looking for. That YouTube video mentioned using structured prompts, where you actually give the AI examples to help guide its responses.
So it's like providing the AI with a script and some sample scenes to help it understand the overall vision.
Exactly, and don't be afraid to experiment. That's the beauty of prompt engineering. Try different approaches, see what works, and refine your prompts until you're getting the results you want.
That's reassuring. I'm all about trial and error. But before we get too deep into the nitty-gritty of prompt engineering, I do want to make sure we touch on another exciting development in generative AI that I found fascinating. RAG, or Retrieval Augmented Generation.
RAGs is super cool. It combines the power of LLMs with information retrieval to make AI responses even more accurate and reliable.
So instead of just relying on its pre-trained knowledge, an LLM using RAG can tap into a massive database of information.
Exactly. Imagine you're asking an AI about the latest advancements in, say, electric vehicle technology. With RG, the AI could access its pre-trained knowledge, but also pull in information from external sources like research papers, industry reports, you name it.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like giving the AI access to the entire internet in real time.
You got it. And it's incredibly useful for tasks that require the most up-to-date information, like answering your question about electric vehicles.
This is blowing my mind. It feels like RJAG could revolutionize how we use AI in so many fields, from research to customer service. But let's get back to those real-world applications we were discussing earlier. We talked about how LLMs are being used in data analysis and programming. What other areas are they making an impact? Okay, so we've explored how LLMs are being used in things like data analysis and programming. But I'm ready to circle back to something we discussed earlier, actually building our own LLM-powered app. Remember that source we had on creating a text-to-image app for Android?
Yeah.
Let's dive into that.
You're in for a treat. It's surprisingly straightforward considering what we're building.
Really?
The source breaks it down into manageable steps, starting with setting up the development environment.
We're talking about getting all the right tools and software installed, right?
Right.
Like prepping the kitchen before we start cooking.
Exactly. You'll need your trusty Python, of course, along with some specialized libraries like Flask for building the web framework and OpenAI for, well, talking to OpenAI's models.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
We need to connect our app to those AI brains.
Yeah.
So what about the app itself? How do we go from lines of code to something that actually works on my phone?
It all starts with a simple user interface. Think of it like the dashboard of your app.
Okay.
You'll need a text box where the user can type in their image description, a button to kick off the image generation process, and a space to display the masterpiece the AI creates.
From a user's perspective, it sounds pretty straightforward. I type in what I want, hit a button, and boom, AI art.
Right.
But I'm guessing there's a lot happening behind the scenes to make that magic happen.
You're right. That's where the code comes in. Our source uses Python to handle all the communication between your app's interface and the OpenAI API. It's like teaching your app to speak AI. It takes the user's text input, sends it off to the AI model, then grabs the generated image and displays it back in the app.
Wait, now I'm really starting to see how all the pieces fit together.
Right.
But before we get lost in the coding weeds, can we talk about the AI model itself? Which one are we using for this text-to-image app?
The source specifically uses OpenAI's Delay, which is known for its ability to generate super creative and sometimes surreal images from text descriptions. Remember that fluffy cat wearing a monocle example we talked about?
Yeah.
Delay could whip that up in no time.
See, this is what blows my mind about all of this. We've come so far in such a short time. But let's get back to the app development process. Once the code is written, how do we actually get it up and running on an Android device? Do we need a whole lab set up for that?
Not quite. The source recommends using an Android emulator, which is essentially a virtual Android device that runs on your computer. Think of it like a digital test dummy for your app.
Got it.
It lets you test and fine-tune everything without needing a physical device in hand.
So it's like a safe space to experiment and make sure everything works as intended.
Exactly. And once you're happy with how it's running in the emulator, you can package it up and share it with the world, or at least with other Android users.
You know what? This is making me want to dust off my coding skills or lack thereof. It feels like with the right guidance and a little bit of effort, anyone can create their own AI-powered apps these days.
That's the beauty of it all. It's becoming increasingly accessible, empowering more people to bring their creative visions to life.
This entire deep dive has been incredible. We started with the basics of generative AI, unpacked powerful tools like Claude.ai and GitHub Copilot, even got a taste of what it takes to build our own AI-powered Android app.
And we did it all without getting bogged down in overly technical jargon. It's all about making these complex ideas approachable and exciting.
Absolutely. So for all you listeners out there, we challenge you to think about how generative AI could change the game in your world. What amazing things could you create with the power of AI at your fingertips?
The possibilities are truly limitless. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep that creative spark alive.